How about a couple cool tool fails and a foolproof invisible zipper technique? I was so excited to share an adjustable invisible zipper foot that I found online, and I ordered it and I was so excited. Then I realized I wanted to have a screwdriver that I could loosen and tighten the little screw while it was on the machine. So I needed something low, and my chubby screwdriver wasn't low enough. So I got one of those ratchety things. Actually, my dad got it for me. And then I also bought some standard invisible zipper feet to show you as well. So here's what happened. I tried the little screwdriver thing my dad got me. It was one of those like ratchet things, kind of, where you could like turn it and then it would just go. Well, I couldn't get it to work right. The screw was kind of finicky. And I think the way it's shaped, it caused a lot of drag on the zipper no matter how much I adjusted it wider than I thought I needed. So I'm going to show you my results with this foot in a minute. And then the other feet I got to share with you don't fit my 6700P. Now, I used to have a Juki straight stitch machine. All these feet fit on that machine. So there's something about the shank and the clearance front to back, the needles hitting it like right in back of the hole instead of going into the hole. That's why I can't use any of these feet. But I want to show them to you because some of these feet work really, really well. And then after I show you all the things I can't use on my machine, I'm going to show you an easy way to use a standard zipper foot to do an invisible zipper that works every time, even if you're putting your invisible zipper through a seam. So let me just show you here. I'm going to zoom in so you can see these up close. All right, so in fairness to this rather large pile of invisible zipper feet, I didn't buy them all for this tutorial. I found this one, and you can see what it has is a screw on top. So it allows you to adjust it left and right to make the opening bigger or smaller to accommodate a wide variety of invisible zippers. And just in case you were wondering, invisible zippers come in a few different widths. So I have here the YKK heavyweight zipper, and if we look at the back of the pool, it says, I believe that says 500. Oh my God, I can't read it. But I got this on Wawak. This is a heavyweight zipper that works great if you're doing a gown or something that has a waist seam that you have to put the zipper through. And you may have had an experience in the past where when you go to zip and unzip that zipper, it wears out and frays at the point of the seam because it's a stress point. This wider zipper will be much more sturdy for something like that. It's also good for outerwear if you need an invisible zipper in outerwear. I actually have a navy blue one of these as well I purchased to try something with. And then here is the smaller version. Okay, you can see these teeth are pretty narrow. In addition to the teeth being narrow, the twill tape is also more narrow. And then there's actually a size in between, and I've already sewn it into this sample. And if I put this one right next to this one, you can see they go from large to medium to narrower. That's why I thought having the adjustable zipper foot would be an amazing thing. Now here's what happened when I tried to use it. Isn't that pretty? So first I tried it with the opening really close to the width of half of the zipper teeth, because you sew it on each side, and I got a lot of pooling. Okay, so then I moved it over a little bit, and I didn't get pooling, but I still didn't get a great result, and I found it to be very finicky to work with. So I am going to say, if anybody would like to try this invisible zipper foot, you're welcome to. I'll put a link to it. Maybe you have a better technique than me because, you know, I am not a pro at everything. This is just not my friend. So I did try it. This is the result I got. I found it very fussy. I tried a few different times. I ripped this out and tried it like 3 times. And this was the best side I could get here. And it's close. It's close. So I think if you practice with it, you probably could do a really good job with it. I'm not willing to spend any more time on it. So this is a no for me. But again, I'm putting a link to it so you can check it out. And then, let me just move this out of the way. This is a YKK brand invisible zipper foot. And you can see it's got the tracks in it. And it has one for the left and right. And they angle off to the side a little bit, which actually curls the coil away from where you're stitching. These work really well if you have the right one for the size zipper you're using and if it fits on your machine. So I have this one. I also have this one, which you can see is a little bit smaller. So this would work with the tiniest teeth. And I'm sorry, I didn't make note of the official sizes for these zippers. So if you check the description below, I have links to the Wawak page where I found all these zippers so you can see them for yourself and you can decide which width, twill tape, and teeth are best for your project. I would say the stronger you need the zipper to be, the larger the teeth I would get. And again, if you're going through a seam, even if it's not a super heavy fabric, I do think this large, this largest option is going to be very strong for you and you're not going to have trouble zipping it through the seam at the waist. But you can see if I have this standard invisible zipper foot, it's not going to work with teeth that are this wide. You can see it just won't even, be close. So as happiness would have it, they do make an invisible zipper foot that has an opening that is big enough, and you can see that fits right in there. Okay, and that's exactly how you would use it. You would put the, you would put it through the track, and then you would sew like this. And as you start sewing, you can see the hole at the top would get your needle right there at the base of the coil. So these do work really, really well. And I'm very, very sad that they don't fit my Janome 67P. But if you have a standard or industrial straight stitch machine, it's likely these will work. Another thing you can do is check your brand of sewing machine for specialty feet. Most major brands of sewing machines do come with a store branded version of this kind of invisible zipper foot. I had one for my FOF that I loved, and I used it all the time. It was a clear plastic version. So, if you're looking for something that's got the standard hole for the size teeth you're using, these are amazing. So the other option is they make these zipper feet, and you can get them right and left. So this is similar to a standard zipper foot where you move your needle and it butts up against the side. Now these are high shank feet, but again, where the slit is for the hole to sit in there, it doesn't line up with my machine. So now I have all of these feet that do not work on my machine. I'm going to hold on to them just in case I ever get an industrial straight stitch machine that's different from this one, but these all do not work for me. But as luck would have it, let me just stick these away so I don't lose them. I'll put them in my basket there. All right, so as luck would have it, the zipper foot that comes with the Janome 6700P is amazing, and it does an amazing job to put in an invisible zipper, and it looks like this. And you can see it's got a center hole, and then it's got the 2 side openings, so you can really get your needle where you need it when you're putting in an invisible zipper. So now let's look at my sample that I did, and I'm going to show you how to do this. And what I wanted to show you was how to sew an invisible zipper where you've got a seam, like a waist seam, so that has to match up. So the top of your fabric has to match, the seam has to match, and then where you start sewing the actual seam has to match. All right, so as you can see, this sample, the seam matches up perfectly, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Another thing that can happen with invisible zippers is because you're trying to snug the needle up against the coils, it can push the whole zipper away from the edge where you're trying to get an accurate seam allowance, because that's also important, because where you sew the zipper on has to line up with the seam below it, so you get a continuous seam right to the base of the zipper without it bubbling or causing some agita. So you can see here, I'm just going to unzip it. Okay, and I think you saw how it struggled. Let me do it again. This is some lightweight twill. I wanted to use something that I didn't have to also interface. If you're working with a lightweight fabric on zippers, you also want to interface the edges where you're going to sew to keep it from puckering as you sew. But this fabric, you can see, works fine without interfacing, so I'm not going to interface. But I want to show you what happens when I pull the pull down and I get to right here where the seam is. You can see it struggles. Okay, it does come out, but you can see over time, if I keep zipping and unzipping this garment, eventually the zipper is going to stress at this point where the seam is. So I'm going to show you how to install the larger, more heavyweight zipper. The process is going to be exactly the same, but then I'm going to zip it up for you and show you how much easier it zips across that intersection. And what I want you to notice here, as I turn my sample to the wrong side, I press both of my seam allowances down at the waist, okay? And then you'll notice there's an extra row of stitching on this zipper. So I'm going to show you how to make sure the zipper is in the perfect position by essentially machine basting it on, you know, stitching that no one's ever going to see. It also keeps the zipper from flopping around, you know, against your fabric here. So I'm going to show you how to do all of that and make a very easy zipper that's foolproof using this zipper foot. All right, so before we go to the machine, I just want to show you here, I cut these two pieces out, and I just want to show you how you align the zipper with the fabric. If you're going to plan on using this heavy-duty invisible zipper, you know, the wider version, you might as well adjust your seam that you're putting the zipper into and increase the seam allowances to the width of the tape. That way you don't have to guess, and you can actually butt up the edge of your twill tape with the edge of your fabric. So I'm just going to measure this here to show you that this measures 5/8 of an inch. That is a very generous twill tape. So we're going to sew at 5/8 of an inch when we go to sew this zipper on. And then, you know, it's important to know this ahead of time because you want to add to your seam allowances so then you can continue sewing the seam all the way down 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unzip my zipper, and I'm going to put the zipper right sides together with the fabric. Now it's important the way you turn the zipper. I can turn the zipper to the right side by doing this. Okay, that looks right, doesn't it? But also I can turn it by turning it like this. It looks exactly the same, but the difference is one of the ways I turned the zipper to the right side is going to create a twist and I won't be able to zip it up, versus just turning it so then it goes back and I'm able to zip it. So what you want to think about here is when your zipper is face up or right side face up against the right side of your fabric, you want to wave the teeth of the zipper towards your face like this. Hello. And then lay it flat. And now I know I've got it into position and it's not going to twist and become unzippable once I sew them together. If you turn the zipper to the wrong right sides together, scratching the teeth against the fabric or dragging them against the fabric to turn it, it's going to create a twist that you can't zip the zipper up. So again, wave the teeth in front of you Okay, and what I want to do here is you want to have the top stop the distance from the top of the fabric that equals your seam allowance for the waist or the neck or whatever that is. So this is a very generous top. So again, I'm going to measure that. That measures also 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that down to a 1/2 an inch like this. So I'm essentially going to trim off 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to use my rotary cutter to do that. And actually, I think what I'll do is I will zip it up and make sure I get both sides exact here. Well, actually, I'm not going to do that. Let me just trim them both so they're both ready to go here. So 1/2 inch. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the extra at the top, and now I can very easily wave the teeth in front of me and line up the top of the twill tape with the top of my fabric. I'm going to put one pin into my zipper like this. Okay, now as an example, if I were using a zipper that was a narrower twill tape, I'm just going to show you what I would do on this side. Let's pretend we were using this zipper, this tiny little zipper. What I would do here is I would mark, you know, with a pen, just the very top here, so I would get my 1/2 inch seam allowance like this. Just mark the top. And then when I position this zipper on, and again, I'm going to wave the teeth at my face, I'm going to line it up so where I'm going to stitch is where the seam allowance is. And I only need to mark it at the top because once I get that lined up, I can visually see I'm about a 1/4 inch away from the raw edge of the fabric, and I'll be able to line it up as I sew. But you do want to start it off so that where you start stitching, you know, the zipper close to the base of the teeth is at that 1/2 inch mark. So when you go to finish your seam down at the bottom of the zipper, it matches up. All right, so the next step is we're going to go to the sewing machine. Let me pull that up here. All right, so here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to bring my zipper under my presser foot, and for this, all I'm going to do is put my zipper in the middle of my foot into the hole here so it's hitting in the middle, and I'm going to stitch straight down my zipper. Now essentially what's happening here is I am holding the zipper in the perfect place to actually sew the zipper. So this first step is actual basting, and I'm going to stop right here so I can also show you how to finish the seam at the bottom. So I'm just going to go down until I stitch to where I can't stitch anymore, and I'm just going to cut that. I'm not going to back tack because again, this is just basting it on. So you can see what I've done here is I basically held the zipper into position. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's look at the zipper now. You can see that if I lay it flat like this, okay, that's in position, right? The next step is I'm going to put my second piece of fabric on top because this is the right side of my fabric. This is the right side of my fabric. I'm going to put it right here, but what I want to do at this point is I want to peek in here and make sure where I'm putting it, the seam is lining up. Okay, so once I know I've got the seam lined up, I can line up, I can turn it this way actually, it'll be easier to see, right? I want to make sure that my edges are even or positioned a similar amount from the raw edge. So if I was using that narrow twill tape, I would look to see how much my fabric was offset, and I would offset it the same amount here like this as I saw over here. But again, we're working with this zipper, so I'm just going to butt it up against, and I'm just going to double check to make sure, and see if I fold it back, I can also see the intersection where the seam is, right? It's right there. I'm going to put that back. I'm going to pin it in place. Again, we're just working with one pin. Like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open it up and double check. So when it's open, we want to make sure that the seams are matching exactly. All right, so that looks like that matches pretty well. I'm just going to double check. Here's where if you take an extra minute and just literally double check yourself, make sure everything is exact. Put the pin in, and then here is the beauty of this situation. The zipper and the fabric are now in right sides together like we need them. We don't have to worry about how we're going to flip it over to get it right sides together. So once that's pinned in place, I can unzip my zipper, and you can see what I have here now is I've got my second side all ready to go. So now I'm going to do the same thing I did to the first side to the second side. I'm just going to baste it on. Let me get the sewing machine back over. All right, so now I'm just going to stitch just like I did the first time. And I really don't want to remove this pin until I get to it. So I'm just going to stitch. When I get right to the pin, I'm going to take it out. And then I'm going to continue stitching. And I want to stop stitching approximately where I stopped on the first side, which I forgot about that. So let me just see here. All right, so I'm just going to go a couple more stitches and then I'll double check that, but I think that's close. All right, so now let's look at it again. All right, so I think what you can see here now is you've set yourself up for a perfect situation. You can see that my seams are matching, and if you want to double check, just take a ruler and line it across and make sure that they are lined up. So you can see that they match, and that way you know you're good in terms of matching that seam. So now we're going to go back to the sewing machine and we're going to finish this. Now this time, you can see I stopped my basting in a similar position. That basting is going to be my guide for where to stop sewing each side of the zipper on. So another thing that can happen when you're doing an invisible zipper is you might sew a little bit farther down on one side than the other side, and then you have to pick it out and make it match so you can sew your seam. So this way, I'm making sure that these are virtually identical across, because I'm going to use those as a guide to stop sewing when I sew my zipper to the fabric right next to the base of the teeth. All right, so what we're going to do now is I can unzip this fearlessly because I don't need the zipper for anything now because I've already got it basted and essentially it's marked and ready to go. So to do the zipper now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start below the stop. So I'm going to put my zipper foot right up against the teeth so it's pushing the teeth away. So I think you can see here that the teeth are standing straight up. I've got my zipper foot butted right up against that, and I'm going to move my needle as far over to the left as I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew, and as I sew, I'm going to back tack at the top just to secure that. And then I'm just going to sew all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to keep my zipper sort of crossed in front of my presser foot just so I know it's going to be right up against the left side of the foot as I stitch. Now, one of the beautiful things here is, notice I am not fighting with my zipper pushing away because it's already attached to the fabric. And when I get to the bottom, as soon as I can see the end of my seam over here in this side, I'm going to stop and I'm just going to back tack a couple stitches. then I'm going to do the opposite side. All right, and I can work on the opposite side of this presser foot. So this is one of the reasons why I love this presser foot. Again, I'm butting that right up against the coil there, and I'm going to move my needle all the way over to the right. And again, I'm going to just start stitching. And I'm going to back tack a little bit. All right, and then we're just going to stitch all the way down. And again, when I get right here, I'm going to stop. Okay, and I'm just going to back tack a couple stitches. All right, now that I did both of those sides, I'm literally going to turn this around, and I think I'll do the opposite side first. I want to finish stitching up to the top. So now that it's all attached, I'm literally just going to stitch all the way up, like that. And doing it in 2 steps will ensure that you have a very straight seam there. Okay, you can see that it doesn't bend out of the way. It's completely straight. So now I'm going to move my needle all the way over to the left so I can get the other side. Okay, so again, I'm just going to get it right in there. And we're going to stitch straight up like that. And I know that's a little fussy to do do it in 2 steps, but it's really hard to start at the very top and get an accurate straight line there. All right, let's zip up our zipper and see how it looks. All right, so now I'm gonna flip these pieces around so we can see how it is. I'm gonna zip it up. All right, and you can see I have a perfect center matching, okay? And if you pull it away and the twill tape shows, you can go back in and nudge it a little bit closer. But basically, you know, this is, you know, when I press this is going to be pretty good. What I want to show you here is, look what happens when I get to that intersection. So when I go to unzip it and zip it and unzip it, you can see it struggles a little bit, but it's easier to pull up through this bulky area than it was with the narrower zipper. Now, to finish this, all right, so just so you can see it, I'm going to use my, I think I have a choco liner here. And what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to mark the seam allowance that I'm working with here. Like this. Actually, it's hard to see, so I'm going to use a pen. If I were doing a real garment, I would actually mark it with chalk, but because I'm doing a sample here and I just want to show you, I probably wouldn't mark it on a real garment, but I just want to show you here what the goal is. I'm going to use this pen. Okay, so I marked how the seam will join the base of the zipper. Here's the trick. You don't have to get to the actual base of the stitching where you stitch your zipper on. If you leave a couple stitch lengths worth of hole there, no one's ever going to see it, and it gives the fabric a little breath. So your choices are, you can get the fabric into the machine and try to do it from the top, or you can start from below and come up to the zipper, depending on your fabric and what you're doing. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently pull my zipper out of the way. I'm going to bring my needle all the way to the right, And I'm going to put my presser foot as close as I can to the base of my stitching. But again, like I said, I don't need to be right on top of it, and I'm going to pierce my needle in my seam, and then I'm going to take a couple stitches forward and do a couple stitches back, and then I'm just going to stitch all the way down. You know, I would just keep going until my seam was finished. And that's how I would finish my seam. So let's take a look at that. All right, can you see where the seam ends and the zipper opening starts? I mean, I can, but I'd have to really stare for it, right? It's right there, see? This is my easy, foolproof, invisible zipper insertion. I hope you enjoyed it, along with all of my cool tool fails for this week. I have to admit to you, I've had these bits and pieces of this tutorial for almost a month now, and I kept buying more things. First, I didn't have the right screwdriver. Then I wanted to get the additional zipper feet, and then I realized I needed different zipper sizes to show you. So this has been a long time in coming because I spent a lot of time ordering things individually as I got them and started to think about the tutorial. So I'm sorry that I couldn't show you the fancy dancy zipper feet in working motion. I'm going to try to find for this Janome the standard invisible zipper foot that has the 2 tunnels, so I can show you how nicely that works as well. But I will also tell you that if you take the extra step of basting the zipper to the fabric before you start to nudge in close, it really makes a nice, easy experience for you because, number one, you can check to make sure that the seam is matching up if you have a waist seam. And secondly, you're not going to fight with the zipper pushing away from the edge of the fabric. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on how to insert an invisible zipper and my little review of all these little zipper feet that you can get for your machine. I'll put links to things in the description below so you can check them out for yourself. But please make sure they fit your machine before you purchase them, unlike me who just fearlessly purchased, clicked, put in cart, add to cart, add to cart, without checking to make sure they fit on my machine. So I'm going to do more research on that. I'm going to find the right feet for my machine, and I'll do a recap of this on another time. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel. It helps me grow. And thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.